My client hired me to date her son. When the contract was up, she told me to make it a clean break, no drama, no heartbreak. She was seriously overthinking it. Julian was so reluctant to date me in the first place, I figured he'd be popping champagne when we broke up. Full of confidence, I launched into my performance. I had my tarot cards read, and they said our cosmic connection is severed. If we don't break up, a terrible accident is coming your way. He didn't even look up. Look at this pork knuckle. It's split in two. It's a sign from the heavens that we should go our separate ways. He shot me a chilling glare. I use T9, and you use QWERTY. We're clearly from different worlds. We have to break up. Julian slowly lowered his phone, his deep eyes locking onto mine. His voice was low and husky. Come up with one more terrible excuse, and I'm taking off an article of your clothing. What happened to the cold, moody, rich boy air? When did he turn into a pervert? I was in Julian's penthouse making him soup when the text from my client came through. The screen lit up with a short, simple message: time's up. Break up with Julian within a month. Remember, don't let him get hurt. I clutched my phone, fighting back a smile, and quickly replied, got it. Finally. Time to collect the final payment. A year ago, Julian's mother approached me with an offer I couldn't refuse. The job was simple: pursue her son, Julian, and have a relationship with him. The payment was split into 3 installments, one for signing, one for successfully getting him, and the final one for breaking up. Julian, soup's ready. I set the bowl on the table and called toward the study. He emerged at the sound of my voice, dressed in a simple black robe that looked like high fashion on his model-like frame. His face was all sharp angles, his gaze cool and distant. He silently took a seat across from me, picked up his spoon, and started sipping the soup while scrolling through the news on his phone. This was our usual dynamic. He was the silent one, and I was the one chattering away. Every topic, every interaction, felt like a one-woman show starring me. But that was fine. I was used to it. Looking back on my arduous quest to win him over, I'd earned every penny. When Mrs. Grant first found me, she was beside herself with worry, telling me her son had never even held a girl's hand. Worse, she'd once walked in on Julian sleeping in the same bed as his best friend. The poor woman was terrified, worried about the future of the Grant family line, and desperately needed a girl to teach her son how to be in a relationship. And so, I started my new job. I drew up a detailed battle plan: stage a chance encounter, fake an accident, be relentlessly persistent. He completely ignored me, treating me like I was invisible. The real turning point was the car accident. Julian was laid up in a VIP hospital suite, completely immobilized. The once untouchable heir was now a lamb to the slaughter. I brought him meals every day like clockwork. When he refused to eat, I'd pry his mouth open with the spoon. I convinced Mrs. Grant not to hire a private nurse, so changing his clothes and giving him sponge baths all fell to me. Julian, if you don't want to start stinking, you'll do as I say. Holding a warm towel, I gritted my teeth under his icy glare and wiped him down. When he wouldn't take his medicine, I lost my patience and just kissed him, forcing it down. He was too weak to even push me away. Julian, refuse me one more time, and I'll kiss you again. Over that period, his expression went from cold shock to numb resignation, and finally, to a look of deep helplessness. On the day he was discharged, he was sitting in a wheelchair, watching me bustle around. Suddenly, he spoke. "You're going through all this trouble because you want to be my girlfriend?" I nodded obediently. Yep. He was silent for a long moment before sighing, as if making a tremendous sacrifice. "Fine," he said wearily. "I'll do it." And just like that, I got my second payment. Now, all that was left was the easiest part. For a relationship he'd been forced into, wouldn't a breakup be a sweet release? He was probably counting the days. I looked at the still expressionless man across from me, filled with confidence. As long as the reason for the breakup didn't wound his pride, this would be a piece of cake. I'd be out of here, cash in hand, in less than a week. That night, Julian was in his study working. I sat on the rug beside him with my new deck of tarot cards, pretending to talk to myself just loud enough for him to hear. These seem to be really popular lately. Let me see what the future holds for me and my darling. I snuck glances at him as I theatrically shuffled and cut the cards, then carefully laid them out in a spread. Taking a deep breath, I dramatically flipped over the first card. Then, I let out a short, terrified gasp, clapping a hand over my mouth as my eyes went wide. My over-the-top performance caught Julian's attention. He looked up from a stack of documents. "What's wrong?" He took the bait. I immediately got into character, pointing at the card with a trembling finger, trying to make my voice sound like it was about to shatter. "Honey, I just did a tarot reading for our relationship, and the result." I paused for dramatic effect, squeezing out a couple of tears before continuing in a choked voice. "It says we're a tragic pairing. The cards show our time is up, and if we don't separate, you'll suffer a terrible accident." With that, I covered my face and started making little whimpering sounds, my shoulders heaving for effect. Julian's deep eyes watched me quietly for a few seconds before he pressed his lips together. Finally, he sighed, put down his pen, and walked over to me. Yes. He's coming to comfort me. Breakup plan is halfway to success. I was secretly thrilled but made my sobs sound even more tragic. "Honey, my heart is breaking, but for your safety, I think we should just..." His tall frame cast a shadow over me, but instead of comforting me as I'd expected, he bent down and picked up a card with his long, slender fingers. "These tarot cards," he said, his voice flat, "are knockoffs, right?" "Huh?" My crying stopped mid-sob. He held the card up to my face, pointing at the crookedly printed image. "Poorly made. The art is wrong." Before I could react, Julian had gathered the rest of the cards from the floor. He walked straight to his desk and, in one fluid motion, dumped the deck that held all my breakup hopes into the paper shredder. Then he turned back to me, still stunned on the rug, and tossed out one final, cold sentence. "If you have time for this, you'd be better off reading a book." The next day, sitting at my desk, I did a serious post-mortem on last night's tarot card plan. Conclusion: the plan was too hasty, and the props were too cheap. To gather some better ideas, I pretended to work while secretly scrolling through a breakup artist forum, studying methodologies. Just as I was reading a post titled "Pretend You're an Alien and Your Home Planet is Calling You Back," the office gossip squad started buzzing in the break room. "Hey, did you guys hear? This year's annual gala is a vintage-themed ball. Have you found a date yet? Who do you think Mr. Grant will ask to be his dance partner?" Mr. Grant was Julian. When I graduated from college, my resume went nowhere. Just as I was about to pack up and go home, Mrs. Grant appeared out of nowhere with this relationship contract. Later, after I'd successfully landed Julian, he complained that I had nothing better to do all day than research recipes and follow him around. In his words, "Anna, don't you have anything else going on in your life?" Then he dumped me into an unremarkable admin position at his company. He also signed me up for a bunch of random classes, packing my schedule to the brim. He called it personal development, but really, he just wanted me to be too busy to bother him. We had a mutual understanding to keep our relationship a secret at work, so we almost never interacted. After all, we were going to break up sooner or later. Why give the office something to gossip about? Doesn't Mr. Grant get out of it every year by saying he can't dance? One colleague asked. Yeah, but last year Mrs. Grant announced in front of all the senior execs that she absolutely wouldn't let him bail this year. Whoa. So who's he going to take? The group gasped with delight at the juicy gossip. I bet it's Vice President Lynn's daughter. I saw her at the office the other day. She has such an air of class. My money's on Susan Lee from planning. She's hands down the most beautiful woman in the company, and she's an amazing dancer. At lunch in the cafeteria, I was hunched over my food when a shadow fell over me. Hi, Anna. I looked up to see Leo from the tech department next door, a handsome guy with black framed glasses and a gentle smile. Leo, what's up? It's about the gala, he said, scratching his head a little sheepishly. The opening dance, have you found a partner yet? If not, would you consider me? With a piece of meat in my mouth, I froze. The gala? How am I supposed to know if I'll even still be here? What if I successfully break up with him next week and quit right after? Just as I was trying to think of a polite way to turn him down, Leo stiffened and mumbled, Mr. Grant. I turned around to see Julian walking toward us. I immediately ducked my head, pretending to be completely absorbed in my meal. He walked past our table without a second glance, and I let out a sigh of relief. But just a few steps away, he stopped. Anna, come to my office. It was like someone hit the mute button on the entire cafeteria. I slowly put down my chopsticks and, under the stares of the entire company, slunk after him. The second we were in his office, I shut the door and hissed, Julian. What was that? Why would you call me out in front of everyone? He glanced at me coolly. Is there a problem? A huge problem, I said, putting my hands on my hips. Don't you know how fast gossip spreads around here? People are going to start speculating. I was just trying to look out for him. He obviously didn't want people to know about us. Whatever. Trying to explain this to him was like talking to a brick wall. I took a deep breath and changed the subject. So, what did you need? He pulled a brochure out of his drawer. Go learn to dance. Huh. After you learn, teach me, he added. It clicked. For the gala? Yes. Then why don't you just sign up for a class yourself? There are plenty of professional instructors out there. I blurted out. His expression darkened. You want me to find another woman to dance with? What's wrong with that? You need a partner to learn how to dance. My voice trailed off as his face grew stormier. He slapped the pen in his hand down on the desk. You're the one who's going to learn. I pouted and muttered an okay. Rich people and their weird rules. Just as I was about to leave, Julian spoke again. Who was that guy just now? Which one? The shifty-eyed one, sitting across from you. I couldn't help but laugh. That's Leo. His eyes are just a little small, he's not shifty-eyed. I guess even quiet guys can have a sharp tongue. Oh. Never mind. Back at my desk, I was bombarded by curious stares from all directions. My closest coworker immediately wheeled her chair over and nudged me with her elbow. What did Mr. Grant want you for in private? I was working late yesterday and ran into him on his way out. He saw I was still there and asked me to print some urgent documents for him. He just wanted me to bring them over. My coworker said, oh, unconvinced, but at least she dropped it. After work, I went to a dance studio for a 2-hour lesson, just as Julian had arranged. By the time I dragged my exhausted body back to my little apartment, I was fumbling in my bag for my keys when a familiar pair of shoes entered my line of sight. I looked up from the shoes, past a pair of long legs, to Julian's ridiculously handsome but expressionless face. He had one hand in his pocket and was holding an insulated lunchbox in the other. His tailored suit seemed completely out of place in my building's dingy, paint-chipped hallway. What are you doing here? In the past 6 months, aside from occasionally dropping me off downstairs, he'd never once set foot in my apartment. Waiting for you. His words were brief as he handed me the container. Dinner. I took it, a little dazed, and unlocked the door. He followed me inside. The place was tiny. My fluffy pink bunny slippers next to his expensive leather shoes looked completely mismatched. Dinner was a feast, 4 dishes and a soup. As I looked at the split pork knuckle on my plate, an idea flashed in my mind. Hey, why is this pork knuckle split? It reminds me of something my grandma used to say. If a couple eats a split pork knuckle, it's a sign that they're going to. I trailed off, watching his reaction out of the corner of my eye. Julian just gave me a flat look, the kind you'd give an idiot. Did you think pigs were built like Doraemon? Huh. Seemingly despairing of my intelligence, He gave a nearly imperceptible eye roll. Then he pulled out his phone, searched for a skeletal diagram of a pig's foot, and shoved it in my face. A pig's metacarpals and phalanges are naturally made of multiple bones. They're supposed to be separate. See here, here, and here. But the braised pig's feet I eat at restaurants are always whole. That's to make them easier to eat. The restaurant removes the smaller bones, he explained patiently. This one was roasted whole. Oh. I hung my head and took a vicious bite of the pork knuckle. Fine. Breakup attempt number 2, failed. After dinner, Julian had me teach him how to dance. I cleared a small space in the cramped living room and put on some slow music. Okay, so, one hand goes here, and the other. I tried to remember what the instructor had taught me as I directed him. He didn't wait for me to finish. He stepped forward, one hand naturally settling on my waist to pull me closer, while the other firmly clasped mine. My heart gave an involuntary flutter. This was a man who hated unnecessary physical contact. We rarely held hands for more than 10 seconds. Why was he being so proactive today? The distance between us vanished, and I could feel his warm breath on the top of my head. My cheeks started to feel strangely hot. Next step. His deep voice rumbled beside my ear. Oh, left foot, forward. We began to practice clumsily. Suddenly, I lost my footing and my heel landed squarely on his shoe. Ah! Trying to pull away, I slipped, lost my balance, and started falling backward. Julian reacted instantly, tightening his arm to pull me back. But he clearly underestimated the momentum of my fall. He was pulled down with me, and we both landed with a thud on the cushioned floor. When I came to my senses, I realized I was sprawled on top of him. He was lying on his back, one arm still around my waist, the other propping himself up. My chest was pressed against his, and my lower body was resting against an unknown object. Maybe it was from the fall, or maybe it was something else, but a suspicious blush had crept onto his perpetually stoic face. After a few seconds, he looked away, flustered. That's enough practice for today. We'll continue tomorrow. With that, he scrambled to his feet, straightened his clothes, and bolted out the door without a backward glance. I got another text from Mrs. Grant. How's it going? Chairman's daughter just got back from overseas last week. I've set up a meeting for her and Julian, so you need to wrap things up on your end ASAP. I immediately replied, okay, don't worry. I reviewed my failed attempts. The problem was that I had initiated them, which probably hurt Julian's pride. The best way would be to make him so annoyed with me that he would be the one to break up. Yes, annoyance. I'd annoy him until he couldn't take it anymore. It had to work. And so, I went full-on clingy girlfriend. On Monday at 9:30 a.m., while he was in a meeting, my text message blitz began. Babe, what are you doing? Why aren't you answering me? Don't you love me anymore? You don't have me in your heart anymore, I'm so sad. After dozens of messages, he finally replied with 2 words, in meeting. I pressed my advantage, you can't text me just because you're in a meeting? Is the meeting more important than me? You have 3 seconds to send me an I love you, babe, or I'm going to get mad. To confirm my success, I made a special trip to the executive floor. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I had a clear view of Julian at the head of the table. After listening to an executive's report, he glanced at his phone, and his brow instantly furrowed into a knot. He's annoyed. The plan is working. That afternoon, I found a new angle. When his female assistant brought coffee into his office, I snapped a picture of her back and sent it to him. Why are there so many women around your office? I'm jealous. You need to fire them all right now. He replied, don't be ridiculous. I immediately sent a barrage of angry emojis, followed by, you're yelling at me for another woman. Julian, you've changed. Next, I sent him a heavily edited selfie. I want you to change your messaging profile picture to my photo so all your colleagues know you have a girlfriend. This time, it took him a long while to reply, be mature. Don't bring your emotions to work. He was annoyed. He was so annoyed. He was about to snap. Over the weekend, I doubled down on my high-maintenance persona. Early in the morning, I barged into his place, dragged him out of bed, and made him take me shopping, to the nail salon, and out to eat. At the restaurant, I ordered all the most expensive dishes, took one bite of each, and then complained they were gross. At the nail salon, I whined that the colors he picked were ugly and made them try every design on me. On the way home that night, I started dragging my feet. I'm so tired, my feet hurt. I can't walk anymore. He gave me a weary look. Let's find a place to rest. No. I opened my arms and demanded in a whiny, sing-song voice, I want you to give me a piggyback ride. All eyes around us snapped in our direction. He was silent for 2 seconds before finally squatting down in front of me with an air of resignation. As I rested on his broad back, feeling the steady rhythm of his steps, I was giddy with success. Seeing him look like he was about to explode but holding it in for the sake of appearances, I was sure he was cursing me out 1,000 times in his head. The day he finally broke up with me was not far off. I kept up my high-maintenance act for about a week. One day at lunch, I got sick of the company cafeteria and slipped out to a nearby mall to find something to eat. As I passed by a high-end restaurant, I saw a familiar figure. Julian was sitting at a window seat, and across from him sat an elegant woman with long, flowing hair. I stopped in my tracks. I'd seen a picture of her before. It was Charlotte White, Chairman White's daughter. Mrs. Grant had already set them up. I instinctively ducked behind a large potted plant and spied on them. Charlotte said something, and a rare, genuine smile spread across Julian's usually stone-cold face. The smile was brief, but it felt like a tiny needle pricking my heart. I'd known him for over a year, and I could count the number of times he'd smiled at me on one hand. Most of the time, his expressions were ones of helplessness or indulgence, but rarely one of such pure, relaxed joy. The two of them, sitting there together, looked perfect. In terms of family background and looks, they seemed like a match made in heaven. Humph. So there's no such thing as a truly cold person. I just wasn't the one who could warm him up. My chest suddenly felt tight. But then I realized how ridiculous I was being. I was just a hired gun. I had no right to be jealous. This show was always meant to have an ending. I should be happy, right? Today's the day. Let's end this. That evening, I went to Julian's place. I cooked a table full of his favorite dishes. This would probably be the last meal I'd ever make for him. I hoped he'd like it. The meal was unusually quiet. I didn't chatter on like I normally did, trying to set a somber, pre-breakup mood. After dinner, he sat on the sofa, replying to work messages. The light from his phone screen illuminated his chiseled features, and I watched his long fingers dance across the screen. I glanced over and spoke, as if a thought had just occurred to me. You use a QWERTY keyboard to type? He answered without looking up. But I use T9, I paused, gathering my emotions, then continued in a deliberately light-hearted tone. I read online that people who use T9 and QWERTY have a huge generation gap. And when I think about it, we really do seem to have a pretty big gap. So maybe we should just call it quits. His fingers froze mid-type. The living room fell silent. He slowly lowered his phone, lifted his head, and stared right at me. What are you trying to say? His voice was calm, betraying no emotion. What I mean is, you like peace and quiet, and I talk a mile a minute. You like to read about current events, and I watch SpongeBob every day. I avoided his gaze, picking at my nails as I continued in a low voice. And honestly, I'm tired of chasing you. With our family backgrounds, it's not like we could ever get married anyway. So why don't we just end things on good terms? I could feel his eyes boring into me, so I just stared at my toes guiltily. I'm sorry, man. I gave you a chance to do it, but you didn't take it, so I have to. After a long silence, Julian finally spoke, his tone serious. Are you kidding, or are you serious? I'm serious. I summoned the courage to meet his gaze, trying my best to look sincere and resolute. The air seemed to freeze. His jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. After a long moment, he managed to force out a few words. You should go. Those 3 words were like a pardon, an official end. I stood up, relieved, and put on my coat. At the entryway, I gently placed the key he had given me on the shoe cabinet. Goodbye, Julian. I didn't sleep a wink. As soon as the sun came up, I got up and typed out my resignation letter. When I got to the office, I walked toward my supervisor's office, letter in hand. He was swamped and waved me away impatiently. Whatever it is, it can wait. We have an all-hands meeting starting any minute. I don't have time for you. I had no choice but to put the letter back in my bag. I went to the break room for a cup of hot tea and leaned against the window, trying to decide whether I should find a new job or go on vacation after I got my final payment. Suddenly, a figure walked past me, and a greasy hand made a deliberate and swift grab at my butt. I froze, then spun around to face a disgusting, leering smile. It was the balding, 40-something manager from another department. This wasn't the first time. I'd heard rumors he was always handsy when no one was around. A lot of new female employees had been victims, but with no proof and the fear of losing their jobs, they'd all just swallowed their anger. But today was different. I was about to quit anyway. What did I have to be afraid of? What do you think you're doing? I slammed my mug on the counter and pointed a finger at his nose. Harassing someone in broad daylight. Have you no shame? My voice instantly drew the attention of everyone in the office, and my coworkers started to gather around. The old creep was momentarily speechless, his face turning beet red. Seeing the barely suppressed smirks on everyone's faces, he clearly felt his pride was on the line. He immediately adopted a victimized expression and shot back. What are you talking about? You were the one who brushed up against me. What, did you get angry because I rejected your advances? He warmed to his theme, his voice getting louder than mine. Everyone, you be the judge. I've heard she has a reputation for being promiscuous, always trying to sleep her way to the top. I heard she tried to seduce Mr. Grant when she was working late, and now she's trying it on me. What a joke. In just a few sentences, he'd painted me as a shameless gold digger. You're the one talking nonsense. You're creepy and incompetent, with yellow teeth and a rotten character. Who would ever want to seduce you? You're the one who got caught, and now you're trying to sling mud at me. He paused, his expression shifting from anger to disdain. Are you daring to say you haven't been kissing up to someone powerful? Everyone, think about it. With her qualifications, how could she have possibly gotten a job at our company? I asked around. Someone pulled strings to get her in. Anna, are you going to deny it? He had me there. I couldn't explain how I'd gotten the job. Seeing my silence, the looks on my coworkers' faces instantly changed. I'm going to report you right now and get a trashy woman like you fired. Just as I was trying to figure out how to respond without implicating Julian, a coworker came over to break things up. All right, everyone, stop crowding around. It's time for the all-hands meeting. The crowd dispersed. I walked into the conference room and sat in the most inconspicuous corner. The first half of the meeting was a summary of the company's performance this year. I didn't hear a single word. At the end, the host announced the date and location of the annual gala and encouraged everyone to sign up for performances. To liven things up, Julian had his assistant take his phone and drop hundreds of large cash bonuses into the company-wide group chat. The dull room instantly filled with the sound of phone alerts and cheers as everyone scrambled to grab the money. Whoa! I got over $100. Mr. Grant is so generous. Amid the joyful chaos, someone suddenly shouted, "Hey, has anyone noticed Mr. Grant changed his profile picture?" Who is that? Julian changed his generic black cat avatar? Curious, I also tapped on Julian's profile. A familiar photo appeared on the screen. A woman's picture popped up. The over-the-top skin smoothing, the ridiculous special effects, the face so photoshopped her own mother wouldn't recognize her. Wait, was that me? The commotion in the conference room grew louder as everyone started whispering about Julian's new profile picture. Oh my God, did Mr. Grant really make a woman's picture his avatar? Is that his girlfriend? Who is she? Maybe it's some actress he likes. I asked my friend who's an expert. She said it's not an actress. Wait, the more I look at her, the more she looks kind of familiar. My blood ran cold. I had to get out of there before anyone connected the dots from that hyper-edited photo to me. Just as I was about to slip out the door, I heard my name. Anna, stay right there. Mr. White, I want to report Anna for sleeping her way into her position. It was the bald manager, his voice booming. The room fell silent again. The old bastard. I must have really embarrassed him earlier for him to try and humiliate me in front of the entire company. This woman, Anna, has no morals. After she failed to seduce me, she publicly slandered me. I demand the company investigate people like her who get jobs through improper means and ruin our company culture. The VP, Mr. White, frowned. The focus of the room's gossip instantly shifted from Julian to me. I felt like I'd been stripped naked and thrown into a public square. In the suffocating silence, a cool, steady, and commanding voice cut through the noise from the main stage. I was the one who got her in. Julian had stood up at some point and was holding the microphone. The entire room went dead silent. Everyone stared at him in shock. The greasy manager's face was a mask of disbelief. Julian's voice continued to echo through the speakers. Anna's hiring did not go through the standard recruitment process. I personally recommended her directly to the HR department. This was a violation of company policy and a failure on my part. I would like to offer my sincere apology to all of you. He gave a slight bow, then changed his tone. As a penalty, I will personally be increasing the year-end bonus for all employees. Everyone will receive a new phone. After a moment of silence, the room erupted in thunderous applause. Who cared about HR policy when there were free phones to be had? The co-workers who had been giving me dirty looks moments before were now all smiles. Just as the atmosphere reached a fever pitch, Julian's assistant rushed to his side and whispered something in his ear. Julian's face instantly darkened. He put down the microphone, strode through the crowd, and stopped in front of me. He didn't look at me. Instead, his icy gaze was fixed on the now terrified bald manager. Mr. Harmon, regarding your sexual harassment of female employees, I am officially informing you that the company will conduct a full investigation. I am calling the police right now. At the same time, the legal department will immediately pull all security footage from the office for the past 3 months. I also invite anyone here who has any evidence to please provide it to me or the legal department. I guarantee that all informants' identities will be kept strictly confidential. With that, he signaled to the security guards at the door. Take him to the reception area and wait for the police. Harmon's knees buckled. He tried to beg for mercy but was dragged away by the guards. The room was still reeling from the shocking turn of events when the same sharp-eyed colleague from before muttered, "Doesn't anyone else think that the person in Mr. Grant's profile picture looks a lot like Anna?" At those words, all eyes darted back and forth between the overly edited photo and my actual face. Connecting that with the fact that Julian himself had gotten me the job and had just defended me so dramatically. A clear narrative instantly formed in everyone's minds. The flames of gossip roared to life. But the man who started the fire, Julian, seemed completely oblivious. He suddenly reached out and took my hand, his grip firm. His palm was large and warm. My brain completely shut down. I'd processed too much information in one day. I felt like my soul was about to leave my body. Come on. I'll go with you to the station to give your statement. By the time we left the police station, night had fallen. Julian drove me home in complete, terrifying silence. I tried to speak several times, but one look at his tense profile and his white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel made me swallow my words. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of the day's events, but I still couldn't figure out what Julian was thinking. Then again, he was always an upstanding guy. It made sense that he would defend his ex-girlfriend. He parked downstairs and walked me up to my apartment. The hallway light flickered, casting our shadows long and thin against the wall. After a lot of hesitation, I finally decided to break the silence. Mr. Grant, thank you for today. For helping me out and for calling the police. Do you have to talk to me like that? He looked at me, his tone sounding deeply hurt. I was completely baffled. Wait, what did I say? When I didn't answer, he took a step closer. Are you not even going to let me in? What was with this passive-aggressive tone? Confused, I stepped aside and let him in. He walked straight to my tiny sofa and sat down, radiating a low-pressure aura like an angry statue. I stood there awkwardly for a moment, then went to the kitchen to pour him a cup of tea. Remembering his complaint about how I was talking, I brought the cup over to him. Bending slightly, I put on what I hoped was my most gentle, professional smile and said, "Mr. Grant, please have some tea." He glanced at the cup, and his expression seemed to sour even more. "Anna, are you trying to piss me off on purpose? What the hell? Why was this guy so hard to please?" He suddenly shot up from the sofa and went to the window, his back to me, staring at who knows what. After another long silence, he finally spoke, his voice muffled. "My assistant and the other assistants outside my office, I've had them all transferred to different departments. All the positions are filled by men now." Huh? Was Julian talking to me? What did that mean? Was he giving me a work report? I changed my profile picture. And I switched to a T9 keyboard. I'm learning. Last night, I watched a few episodes of that SpongeBob show. He rattled off a list of things that made absolutely no sense to me. Anna, what else am I doing wrong? Just tell me, and I can change. He spun around. You can't just not give me a chance to fix it and sentence me to death. I was still trying to process what he'd just said, then I remembered I had actually said things like that. He suddenly strode toward me and wrapped me in a hug, burying his head in the crook of my neck. Plink. A single, warm drop hit the floor. What? Was that a tear? Did I make Julian cry? I quickly, clumsily hugged him back. No. I'm not sentencing you to death. I was just making all of that up. Then why did you call me Mr. Grant? His muffled voice came from my shoulder, thick with emotion. So that's what he was mad about. It dawned on me. Oh, Julian? Not that one. Babe? Finally satisfied, he nuzzled my neck and gave a soft hum of approval. I seriously suspected Julian had either taken the wrong medication or been possessed by something very strange. Those tarot cards, that stupid pork knuckle, and that damn keyboard. He seemed to be grinding his teeth with every word. You broke up with me for those reasons. It hurt me a lot. Drip. Another hot tear hit the floor. I never imagined that the absurd, impersonal reasons I'd come up with, the ones I thought would make our breakup a light-hearted joke, had actually hurt him so deeply. God, I'm such an idiot. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I made all those reasons up, it was all nonsense. I was just trying to hurry up and fulfill your mom's request. The words tumbled out of my mouth in a panic. The second they were out, I regretted them. What do you mean? He straightened up, his eyes full of confusion. Tell me. Seeing my evasive glance, he raised his voice, his tone leaving no room for argument. Stammering, I told him everything, how Mrs. Grant had found me a year ago, how she'd hired me to be his girlfriend, and how she'd pushed me to break up with him just a few days ago. I'm really sorry. I was blinded by money and did something so heartless. I'm guilty. I repent. I apologized with all the sincerity I could muster, desperately trying to explain my twisted logic. I thought you were so reluctant to be with me in the first place, that if I just made up a reason that had nothing to do with you, you wouldn't get hurt. Do you really think," he cut me off, his voice hoarse, "that I'm the kind of person who would agree to be in a relationship with someone I don't like, just because it's a hassle to say no?" He looked deep into my eyes and said clearly, "No one can force me to do anything. Unless it's for someone I like. Unless it's for someone I like." I felt my face flush, and my heart started hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. So, he liked me? I was still trying to wrap my head around that when the person across from me got teary-eyed again. The light in his eyes was even dimmer than before. "So, you being with me, it was all just to fulfill my mom's contract? You never liked me at all?" His beautiful eyes filled with tears, threatening to spill over. I had seen Julian be calm, composed, and confident. I had seen him be gentle, patient, and serious. I had even seen him annoyed and angry. But I had never seen him look so fragile, so hurt, so helpless. "No." I practically shouted it, then reached out to wipe his tears. But he flinched back as if he'd been burned, pulling his hand away, his face a mask of utter despair. I had no choice but to mimic what he'd done earlier, but this time, I shouted, "Well, do you really think I'm the kind of person who would chase after a guy I don't like at all and put in all that effort to be good to him, just for money?" "Yes." He called my bluff without a shred of hesitation. "Fine. No other choice, then. I guess I had to." I stopped trying to explain and grabbed his arms. As he stared at me in shock, I cupped his face, stood on my toes, and with all the strength I possessed, I kissed him. The kiss was urgent and fierce, carrying all the unspoken feelings I had suppressed for so long. Before, I'd only ever dared to give him quick, fleeting kisses. Because I knew it was just a contract. Whenever he started to respond, when things started to get real, I would instinctively pull away. I was afraid of falling for him. This was the first time I didn't have to fight my feelings, to tell myself I couldn't fall in love with him. This was the first time I could kiss him without holding back. Julian's shock lasted only a few seconds before he took control, kissing me back like a starving man. We were both swept up in a storm of rediscovered joy and long-suppressed desire, tangling together, demanding more. I felt like I was melting in his scorching embrace. I finally had to push him away when I ran out of air, gasping for breath. "Can you forgive me now?" I panted. He just gently caressed my kiss-swollen lips with his thumb, his voice husky. "Not yet." "Huh?" Before I could ask what he meant, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the bedroom. The door clicked shut and locked. He pushed me onto the bed, then slowly began to unfasten the watch on his wrist. The metal band came off and was placed on the nightstand. Then the cufflinks. Then the first, then the second button of his shirt. Soon, his well-defined collarbones, strong chest, and tight abs were on full display. I stared, practically drooling. Just as he was about to unbuckle his belt, my heart started pounding in my chest. What are you doing?" I stammered. He paused, leaning over me, his dark eyes pulling me in like a vortex. "How many stupid breakup excuses did you come up with in total?" "Huh?" I paused, counting on my fingers. The tarot cards, the pork knuckle, the keyboard, and the ones I had in my notes that I didn't get to use, 6 in total. He nodded, a smirk playing on his lips. "Good. One excuse, one piece of clothing." I instinctively looked down at my own outfit, jacket, sweater, socks, pants, bra, underwear, exactly 6 items. When I looked up again, 4 of them were gone. Julian. I was beet red, scrambling backward on the bed, but he easily pinned my legs with his own, holding me in place. "How much did my mom pay you?" he asked suddenly. "She gave me $600 per session." I was so confused. What session?" He leaned in close, his hot breath tickling my ear, his voice a low, seductive whisper. You'll find out in a minute. This is your punishment for being so greedy. In the end, I found out exactly what he meant. As the night deepened, I was beneath him, crying and begging for mercy, saying I didn't want the money anymore, that I'd give it all back. He replied between ragged breaths, his voice firm, "Keep negotiating, and I'll double it." Epilogue. I did end up quitting my job at Julian's company. It was my idea, and he didn't try to stop me. "I did break the rules to get you in here, letting you skip the normal hiring process," he said calmly, sitting in his office. "And if you stay here, no matter what you achieve, people will always think it's because of me. That's not fair to you." I nodded. He always knew what mattered most to me. "So what are your plans now? What kind of work do you want to do? Or do you want to go back to school?" I hesitated for a long time before saying quietly, I've always wanted to apply to grad school. It's just, I'm afraid I won't get in, and I'm also afraid." "Afraid of what?" "I'm afraid I'll get into a school in another city, and I'll be too far away from you." "What would we do then?" Julian, who had recently unlocked his romantic side, gently ruffled my hair. "I would miss you like crazy. I'd hate it. But if it's what you really want, you should go for it. No matter where you go, I'll support you completely." With my future sorted, there was only one last, major problem to deal with: my contract with Mrs. Grant. Julian told me his mother had indeed arranged a blind date for him with Charlotte White. But he'd met with Charlotte beforehand and told her straight up that he was already in love with someone else. Wasn't she mad? I asked nervously. Mad? Julian laughed. She was thrilled. She told me she was already in love with someone, too, some younger guy in a band at her university. She ended up asking me for tips on how to win him over. Hearing that, I puffed out my chest. I'm an expert at that. Next time you see her, set up a meeting. I'll teach her everything I know. After we'd had our laugh, he said he wanted to take me home to formally meet his parents. Standing in front of the Grant family's magnificent villa, my palms were sweating. Julian's father, a kind and gentle-looking man, opened the door and welcomed me in with a warm smile. But the moment Mrs. Grant saw me, her expression soured. I took a deep breath, determined to win her over with my sincerity. Dinner was tense. I gathered my courage, put down my chopsticks, and faced Mrs. Grant. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I've broken our agreement. I can't continue with your request. I've already transferred all the money you gave me back to your account. Please, just give me a chance to prove." Mrs. Grant's eyes went wide, and she looked completely baffled. Huh? What request? What money? I have no idea what you're talking about. Julian's father shot her a suspicious look. What's going on? Mrs. Grant immediately plastered on a bright smile, completely ignoring her husband. "Oh, Anna, dear, you must have me confused with someone else. This is the first time we've ever met. You're such a lovely girl. My husband and I both like you very much. As long as you and our Julian are happy, that's all that matters to us." Ha, ha ha ha. I was bewildered by this 180-degree turn. I looked over at Julian, only to find him looking down, his shoulders shaking as he tried to stifle a laugh. Mrs. Grant was still laughing awkwardly while frantically signaling to me with her eyes, a look that screamed, "Stop talking." I had no choice but to play along and awkwardly admit that I must have been mistaken. After dinner, Julian walked me home. When we got to my door, I took out my keys to unlock it. He stopped me. "What's wrong? You're applying to grad school, right?" he asked, dead serious. "Yeah. Studying for the entrance exams is hard. You need a quiet place to study, and someone to keep you on track," he reasoned. "And?" He stepped forward and pressed his house key into my palm. "So, I'm formally requesting that you move in with me. I'll supervise your studies." Move in? How was I supposed to study with that face around all day? No, that would seriously jeopardize my grad school plans. I was about to give him a firm no when he pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. My mom said she took the money you transferred her and sent it back to you, doubled. She said to thank you for saving her son from dying old and alone. Heh, she really didn't have to. The moment I saw that number, my resolve evaporated. The shopping cart I had tearfully cleared out yesterday could suddenly be refilled. So, you can't refuse me now. He put his phone away, a smile playing on his lips as he backed me against the door. Huh. $100 a session, he leaned close, whispering so only I could hear. We still have a long way to go. It'll be much easier to keep track if we live together. What happened to the cold, moody, rich boy air? How did he turn into this?